So today I thought I would do a ranking of the Gagana treasure cards. So for people who don't know, these cards can be played when you play free treasure maps, and then you get to discover from a pool of free Gagana treasure cards. Each of these cards are meant to be powerful, high value cards that can help you win the board or even win the game. So I just wanted to make my own personal ranking of what I think are the best and worst out of the 9 cards that you can get. Bearing in mind that just because something I think is at the lower end of the list doesn't mean that I will never pick it or never play it. I mean, all of these cards have a specific purpose and a specific scenario where they will be strong, apart from number 9. That one I've never seen anyone play, but you'll find out why. So the worst card that you can get from the treasures is Ancient Gargoyle. I mean, I don't really see the point in this card, because for it to be effective, you need to have as many treasures in the deck as possible, and then you have to destroy the treasures that you've made. So basically, when you play this card, you lose any other chance of getting any treasures unless you have something that generates treasures every turn, like the Adventurer, but that's very unlikely to happen. I mean, the point of getting treasures is put yourself behind a little bit by playing cards that have treasures, and then you can get a big payoff to hopefully swing the board around. But this card is more like of a finisher when you've already got the board advantage. But the first time you draw a treasure, you're usually not going to be at an advantage, you're going to be at a disadvantage. So ideally, you want to get one treasure, get an advantage on board, and then maybe find this card later, but then that means that you've lost 3 attack and 3 health in value because you had to play a treasure before that to get an advantage. So number 8 on the list is going to have to give it to Key of the Giants here. I mean, basically this is just Runin's Presence that costs 1 less Faeria, right? And I'd say it's probably worse than Runin's Presence since you have less of a chance to get Deepwood Stalker from it. So I don't know. The reason you would choose this card would be if you wanted something with big stats on the board. Sometimes that's not really what you want, so it's quite specific. The payoff isn't that good, seeing that it's only 1 less Faeria than Runin's Presence, so that's why I'm going to have to put it at number 8. At number 7 we have Chrysalis, or Chrysalis, sorry. And this is a more powerful version of the Chrysalis from the green colour. This is not that bad to get sometimes. I mean, it's a 0 cost card, so you're not sacrificing any Faeria that turn when you play it. You can use it to buff a very low cost creature. If you have something that isn't collecting, maybe like a farm boy or something, you have an extra farm boy or a map dealer in hand that you want to play out to buff every turn. You can also use it to block face, and it could be used as essentially 2 tokens. So you can have a low cost creature swallowed inside the Chrysalis. So if an opponent wants to hit your face, then they have to clear not just the Chrysalis, but also the creature inside it, which means that it needs to be attacked twice. So it does help you stall out a little bit if you're going for the race between faces. I say the problem with this card is that it's quite slow. You need maybe 2 or 3 turns for it to be really, really valuable. I mean, 1 turn is still okay, but it's not really going to value trade with anything major. So if you really want it to kind of swing in your favor, you have to wait 2 or 3 turns, and by that time it might be too late. If you're already behind on board presence, that's going to get cleared immediately when the opponent gets their turn back, so you're not going to even get the first production off if you're already behind. Number 6, we have the Spear of the Guardians. I mean, it's actually pretty neck and neck with Chrysalis and Spear of the Guardians, I'd say. It's a nice card. It's only 2 Faeria, so it's also quite cheap. Okay, so I just noticed when making the video that the Spear is actually 1 Faeria now, so it's even cheaper than what I said. So just ignore, because some of the cards are out of date, and they haven't updated it since the latest patch, which was, I don't know, like 5 years ago or something crazy like that. So yeah, just to let you know, it's 1 Faeria, not 2 Faeria. Since it's divine, it's not going to be killed with any removal like Soul Drain or Cypher's Wrath. So we can use it to tackle big creatures that come from the enemy, or we can send it straight to face. This means it's pretty good against rush decks. If you're managing to stabilize on board, you can send out the Spear of the Guardians so that the rush player has to address it. And he can't use any removal, so like yellow rush can't really deal well with it, a red rush can't deal too well with it either. And usually when you play treasures, you're playing towards size, you're a bit more slow paced, so this can really help you get some aggression in when you do manage to get your treasure. I'd say the downside of this card is that the enemy needs to have a high health creature on board for it to have a lot of value, or have nothing at his face to defend when you're going for the aggressive play. So it doesn't really do well against Swarm or actually anything that has AoE like Crack Fawn or something with a Recover Copter in its deck. Number 5, we have Simulacrum of Obedience. And first of all, let's say this card has a pretty nice stat line. It's like 3 attack, 8 health for full Faeria, so it's like Captain. But it also has, I think, probably a better ability in the fact that cards cost 1 Faeria less. So it's really nice if you have lots of cards in your hand when you get this treasure. I'd say the main issue with this card is that it doesn't give immediate value, and the value that it does give is based on what cards you have in your deck. So you already need to have some strong creatures or some sort of win condition, and this is more of helping you get to that win condition faster rather than itself being a win condition. And don't forget that it costs 4 Faeria to play as well, so if you want to play the Simulacrum and then a few other creatures, you're going to have already a large stockpile of Faeria in order to do that. At number 4, we have Key of the Elements. I think this is a quite nice Discover card. So what it lets you do is it lets you choose a colour out of the 4 colours that we have, and then you can choose a creature from that colour and it will cost 3 less. And it's also wild, so you'll be able to play it no matter what deck you're running, as long as it has lands. I mean, if you're playing a deck that has treasures in it, you're going to definitely have lands anyway, so it's not really much of an issue. The issue is maybe finding a card that you want to play, but it has a very high land cost. But usually you just want to play some small cards that cost at least 3 Faeria, so you're getting the full value from the card. And I think the hardest choice is probably deciding which colour to pick, and that's very situational. And also, like, you can't really determine what you're specifically looking for in the colour, because you still have to choose between only 3 cards from that entire pool. I know what I'm saying kind of makes a card sound bad, but the fact that you're getting an extra card and it costs 3 less Faeria is actually really good. It's immediate value. You can usually play that card as soon as you play the Key of the Elements. So that's what makes this card really good. I'm going to have to give Key of the Guardians as a number 3 spot. I mean, this card is so versatile. So it's 7 Faeria and you get to play 2 creatures that have 5 health and 5 attack with Taunt and Divine. So there's a lot of ways you can play this card. You can use it very aggressively, put 2 5/5 creatures at your opponent's face and force them to have to deal with it, or use it very defensively by putting them towards your face. You can also stop aggression whilst putting your own aggression at the same time in one turn, which is very strong. The only downside I'd say for this card is that it's 7 Faeria, and also, if it wasn't for that stupid bug that cancels the second Guardian sometimes, please fix Abraham, I'm begging you. And at second place, we have Fearing Globe. Now, this is a very nice card. It's 3 Faeria, it's 5 attack and 5 health, with charge 5 and flying. Also has the last words of dealing 5 damage to all adjacent enemies. So in theory, it does 10 damage to a creature if it also dies, as well as doing any damage to creatures that are adjacent to it. So if you position this carefully or you line it up well enough, you can end up clearing a very large portion of the board. And if you didn't know, if it dies next to the opponent's orb, it does 5 damage to the orb as well. So you can use it to finish off your opponent. The amount of mobility and stats you get for the cost of this card is what makes it so good. Okay, lastly, the number 1 card. I know everyone was expecting it, so I'm just going to say it, Magic Carpet. So we know what this card is famous for. It's mainly used in the Disciple OTK deck, right? If for those who don't know, what Magic Carpet does is that it sends out a 3 attack, 1 health with flying and dash 5 for full Faeria. So you're probably thinking it's not that great, but the gift is really what makes the card. It fills your hands with flash winds and they become wild. So the idea behind the deck is that you have a Aurora's Disciple and you don't play it immediately, but wait until you have loads of cards in your hand that have draw, so Shifting Tide, Message in a Bottle, and then when you're ready to play the Disciple, you can put it down, and then you play all of these drawing spell cards to buff it up, and then when you get the Magic Carpet eventually from all the treasure maps you get from the deck, you're able to flash wind your Disciple all the way to your opponent's face and then move any creatures out of the way that are defending it and then attack for 20 plus damage. Not to mention that the treasure maps that you do use to find this magic carpet also counts towards buffing your disciple. So the only thing that really can counteract it is going to be Last Nightmare, because you get only one turn of the disciple being on board before it's able to kill you. And even if you're not running Disciple OTK, you're just playing a normal treasures deck, this card can still be pretty good to pick up sometimes if you need the flash wins in order to take any favourable trades that are just slightly out of range for your creatures.